Okay, I think we'll get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second installment of our Let's Talk Tech webinar series. Great to see lots of people joining us on the call today from all over the world. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us from. In this webinar today, we're going to be discussing how to revolutionize your custom fitting service using Golf Genius Golf Shop. We've got some fantastic panelists with us today as well who will share firsthand their experiences on how they've implemented Golf Genius Golf Shop to streamline and enhance their processes. So before we get started, I'd like to quickly cover some standard webinar housekeeping. First, please keep your microphone muted and your camera off during the presentation. And second, if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A button in your Zoom toolbar and drop them in the chat. We'll be addressing all questions at the end of the session. So here's a quick look at today's agenda. We have a jam-packed schedule today, so we're not going to spend too much time talking about it. We're going to jump straight in. We've got a run time of roughly around 30 to 45 minutes today. We'll start with a brief introduction on today's main topic, followed by a deep dive with our panelists, and we'll wrap up with a Q&A session at the end. So before I hand things over, let me introduce our panel for today. My name's Nick Stocking. I'm General Manager for Golf Genius here in the UK. Joining me is my colleague, James Sibbles, who will be leading today's discussion. James has been a PGA professional for 20 years. During his tenure in the golf industry, James has worked in retail operations at The Grove. He was also head of golf at Marriott UK, and before joining Golf Genius, he also worked in EMEA sales for Top Tracer. Now let me introduce our two panelists. So first we have Tom Davies, who owns and operates TourFit Golf, where he specializes in custom fitting and club building based out of Langland Bay Golf Club in South Wales. In addition to TourFit Golf, Tom has recently launched his new club fitting consultancy business, Club Fitting Mastery. So Tom, thank you very much for joining us today. Next, we have Rhys Long, Deputy Head of Retail at the Belfry. In his current role, Rhys oversees all club fitting operations and orders at the Belfry, which is home to one of the largest custom fitting facilities here in the UK, if not the largest. Again, Rhys, thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate having both of you on the call. And last but certainly not least, we have Jenny Potter, our Golf Genius Golf Shop product manager. Jenny has worked in some of Scotland's top pro shops, including Gullen Golf Club and Loch Lomond. And Jenny is on the call today, should anyone have any technical questions regarding the Golf Shop product. So with that, I'll hand it over to James to lead today's discussion. Over to you, James.
Thanks, Nick. And just to kind of echo those words, really want to thank Tom and Rhys for their time today, and for you as well, our listeners, for taking the time out of your busy schedules as well. I think, first of all, it's good just to set the scene for this webinar. So here are some kind of recent white paper insights into custom fitting. I think everybody on the webinar understands the importance and benefits, but it's good just to kind of set that scene as well. So recently, studies show that 96% of golfers found the process of custom fitting and the session itself to be educational. 92% found the experience to be enjoying, and those that were experiencing club fitting at first hand, 70% of those golfers actually had a perception of a benefit, a positive experience itself. I think it's safe to say the benefits and experience of club fitting aren't reserved exclusively for high-performing players. Like the game of golf itself, club fitting absolutely benefits everybody. So with that in mind, and maybe some thought-provoking questions whilst we work through the webinar, what does good or even great custom fitting look like to you in 2025? How can you engage with your golfers to drive new and repeat sales? Can you become more proactive rather than reactive? And can you look to tech and software to help with your services for 2025 and beyond. So I'm going to welcome Tom Davies to the stage. Tom, absolutely delighted to have you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. Why don't you take a couple of minutes just to introduce yourself and the main business focus and ethos of club fitting at Tall Fit Golf?
Yeah, so I guess on the surface of it, I run a business called Torfit Golf, which is based out of a golf club in Langland Bay. I'm essentially a PGA pro, their head pro. I do all of the things that I'm sure a lot of guys on this call and listening in do on a daily basis and weekly basis. Our custom fit business is without question the biggest and most important part of our business at the moment. We've had a huge growth this year. We're up by almost 40% year on year compared to 2023, which has been amazing. I'm sure we'll elaborate a little bit more on kind of how this software has helped me this year and helped my staff as well and helped all the customers. But yeah, outside of that, I still consult to PGA Tour players, Ryder Cup players, European Tour winners. Been lucky. I'm going to go out to Isleworth in December to do some product testing with a PGA Tour player, which is great. And like Nick mentioned earlier, I've also just launched a club fit-in, I guess, consultancy service aimed at PGA pros to help them improve their services.
Brilliant, fantastic. And just on that, just for the listeners, really, just kind of detail what the operation looks like. I mean, how many staff members do you have? What does a typical day look like at Tall Fit Golf?
We've got 5 staff members. We've got 1 barista. So typical day is involved a lot of coffee, which is very important to me, my customers, and the staff, believe it or not. We've got 2 PGA professionals that work for us. One of them is focused mainly on doing club fitting and club building. Our business is a little different to certainly a lot in our area anyway, where the vast majority of accounts that we've got with companies are component accounts. So we actually build the clubs on site as well as do a lot of the custom fit. So kind of the detail of the order is really important for us, and for that to be stored in the right place, and the communication of those orders, especially among staff members, is incredibly important, just to make sure that what we actually prescribe to the golfer in terms of a specification is exactly what they get. So yeah, I guess, we do a lot of building, we do a heck of a lot of custom fitting, we drink a lot of coffee, and we try and have a bit of a laugh on the way through as well, to summarize it.
That's fantastic. And I guess with regards to the actual building of the clubs on site as well, is that how you potentially manage that whole, what is standard with regards to the kind of manufacturers?
Yeah, I mean, my background, I worked on tour for a number of years for one of the equipment manufacturers, and I guess one of the biggest frustrations based on my my history, I guess, is when you order something and it comes in and the specification is not quite up to scratch. It's definitely got better over the years, but we just wanted to eliminate that problem, I guess, for our customers, and just make sure that, if we were saying to someone that it's going to be standard length and the grips are going to be on upside down, it's going to be 2 degrees upright or whatever it is, whatever the spec is, well, that's what they're going to get, So once we build the clubs and the player gets them, we actually know what's gone into that build, and if they need any manipulation or changes, we actually know what's gone on, So yeah, for me, it's been a really important part, and it also gives me a lot of flexibility as well with my pre-books, which is probably the most important part of it, more than as much as, I tell the customers this is the most important part of it from a business standpoint. Having flexibility to try and turn over all of my pre-booked orders rather than sitting on the shelf has been, it's been a game changer, really. So my stock turn has actually improved quite a lot as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. And obviously we've got some insights into to the business here on the slide, but hardware brands that you deal with, What are the kind of the main ones that you work with?
Well, we've got accounts with pretty much everyone, all of the main brands. So Callaway, TaylorMade, Ping, Titleist, Cobra, Miura, Strixon. Probably going to miss a few. TaylorMade, if I hadn't already said it. Yeah, we pretty much deal with all of them. Titleist, TaylorMade, and Callaway are our biggest accounts. And yeah, it's like it's really important that, you know, if I'm putting big pre-book orders in with those, that I'm able to, you know, make sure that I can sell it. The way in which we are set up as well, we've got a very, very small shop. Our studio is actually almost double the size of our shop, believe it or not. So it's really difficult for us to actually stock lots of golf clubs, which is why it becomes even more important then that they come in component form and we can store them nicely and you know, present them really well as well.
Fantastic. And again, on here it says a pretty even split between member and guest, but is that a true reflection of the customers that come and frequent Torfit Golf, and kind of where are they coming from? Have you know, are they coming
Yeah.
locally or slightly further afield?
Yeah, we do get a lot of people traveling further afield. I mean, we had a PGA guy, a PGA pro came from Italy last week. I've had guys coming down from St Andrews. Lots of people traveled a long way for the service. But it's probably not quite a true reflection on members versus guests. We're probably more kind of 70-30. But certainly since I've installed the Golf Genius software, it's yeah, it's a fair reflection. But earlier in the year, we get a huge amount more guests than we do members.
Brilliant. And you implemented Golf Shop at the kind of middle of the summer last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what's been the biggest kind of change, would you say, in custom fitting over the last 10, maybe 5, and almost 2 years as well? Kind of a lens on those time periods. What do you feel personally has kind of changed the biggest in custom fitting in processes and
I mean, in terms of, you know, just being at a golf club, I guess, I feel like the golf industry is actually lagging behind quite a lot in terms of service. So, I mean, you can relate it to so many different industries. I mean, you go on to, you order something from Amazon, right? Which might be I don't know, whatever it is, it could cost you 2 or 3 quid. You get email updates, you get text updates. You don't need to chase it. It's very rare that you need to try and find a telephone number to phone, you know, and chase the order. You know exactly where it is at all times. And the golf industry, you know, especially from a fitting standpoint, you know, what we found is we could take somebody on the journey up to the point of where they place the order for the clubs, and from that point to when they receive it, there was a big void. And what was happening in that void is because there's you know, communication is manual, where you've either got to pick up the phone, send a text message, send an email. You know, it just doesn't get done as regularly. It doesn't matter how many team members that you've got. You know, it's hard for that process to be consistent. Um, and you know, my WhatsApps, I just can't keep up with them. Literally, it just goes absolutely bananas. Even to the point where I've turned my work phone off and put WhatsApp business on another phone, so nobody can phone me. My WhatsApps just go and go and go and go, and we find it very difficult to keep on top of that service side of it. And that's why we ended up, you know, using Golf Shop, because it just filled that void for us. And I feel like that we've brought ourselves up now to standard with, you know, a lot of different industries in terms of placing an order, which I think has been fantastic. And, you know, it's noticeable for me how much more freedom I've got, you know. And I think like we spoke about yesterday, there's almost like 3 things which I look at when I'm looking to make an investment in my business. It's either got to improve the service, it's got to give me more freedom in my life, or it's got to provide more profit. And I think the Golf Shop software has actually touched on all 3 of those for me personally. Rhys, I'm sure, is going to elaborate on it a little bit more from his standpoint, but you know, I could definitely, you know, bring up or you know, create an argument for all 3 of those, which has been amazing.
I think that's a really good point that you've made, actually, because it's like you say, almost golf is lagged behind other industries like hospitality and retail. and now it really feels like it's starting to kind of bridge that gap and embrace on the technology side and software side. And like you say, a customer buying off Amazon, for example, there's that expectation now of noting at what stage that delivery is at and that
Yep.
order's at. And I think potentially from what it sounds like, you're able to then relocate and re-energize your attention into other aspects of the business because you're not kind of constantly worrying about, oh, do I need to notify that customer, and so on.
I mean, the biggest thing for me was we actually had one situation in particular where, and I'm sure a lot of guys can relate to this, where we'd done the fit in, it all went great. It was a great fit in. The specs were all fine, and there was a lot of excitement built up, in terms of getting the order, and it just went a bit pear-shaped. And for us, because we're relying sometimes on maybe three suppliers where we're looking for a certain grip or a certain shaft and a certain head, we're not getting it just from the equipment manufacturers. That guy that I'm referencing here waited, maybe a week longer than what we had promised. It wasn't on the highest point on our agenda at that point. And it seriously went pear-shaped, and that's when I decided I really need to make a change here, and I need to invest and make sure that, I can avoid those situations, because that literally cost me, probably the best part of 800 quid, where I had to give them a refund, and there was all sorts of stuff going on. But yeah, it's been good.
Fantastic. Well, we'll just pause it there a little bit with yourself, and we'll just we'll have a little chat with Rhys with regards to the Belfry, and just look at it through a lens of a venue that's obviously very prestigious, probably the most well-known venue and resort up and down the UK. So Rhys, again, delighted to have you today. But if you just want to spend a couple of minutes just to introduce yourself and maybe the main focus and ethos of custom fitting at the Belfry.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll get the difficult job of following after Tom, because he's had all the good elements of it and shown what was correct there. Use my Amazon analogy as well. But yeah, it's a similar thing. We don't build the clubs here on site, so we do utilize the brands to build them. Our key thing was communication, though. That was just what we wanted to improve, and it echoes the same thing, that we wanted to be up to date with everybody, getting the messages to them immediately, getting their specs over to them, their ETAs as quick as possible. We used to do a lot of phone calls, emails and phone calls. What we found is when we're emailing and phone calling people, tends to be Monday to Friday between 8 and 9 when they're also at work, so you're constantly missing them. So there was a time element of, one, you've missed a phone call, now you're writing a whole email out, sending it across. So the text element for it was almost enough of a tipping point for us to go for it, if I'm honest. But yeah, there were so many more add-ons to it from there as well. So just to give you an idea of what our sort of setup looks like, if you haven't been here before. So we've got the Golf Academy, which is at the start of the resort. And then over at the pro shop, the golf shop, probably 400 or 500 yards away, that's kind of where all custom fit is based, where we place orders, where we get all our deliveries. And it's almost two separate teams within a team. So we've got like the fitters down one side at the range where they do it, and they take the money, they place the orders. Then the other end of the shop, that's where we're getting all of our deliveries, where we're chasing orders, where we're sending them, all that kind of thing. So we're almost separate in different areas. We utilised email, but we also did have a paper element to it, which was, I'm sure you can imagine, is chaotic, because if that paper goes missing, you're like, well, where's that gone? So yeah, that was definitely a nightmare. But yeah, bringing it almost up to modern day standards for everything was kind of a key one for us. And also just the customer's view, they're all getting a pretty structured, standard message. And it's how we want it to be. No matter what member of staff's working, they're all getting the same kind of experience of what we wanted. So we started looking into it at the start of summer this year with Jenny, who was fantastic for us. I think that's almost one thing that we need to mention as well. Jenny, from a support superb. She's answered every question we wanted and almost pushed us more than we pushed her. So yeah, she's been great from that point of view. But yeah, just getting a structure is a big one for us. The dashboard, which I'm sure you'll go through and almost point to people, is invaluable. Like Tom was saying, if there's ever something that you think you're going to miss, almost the dashboard picks it up for you. So when we place the order, we then send out an ETA once we've got it, and the dashboard tells us like this golf club should be here, and it alerts you in colours to be like, you need to do something about this. So from that point of view, it's very good. And yeah, it didn't take us too long really to set it up and get it almost teething proof, which was a lot better than we were expecting. It got into play pretty quick, and yeah, it was efficient really early.
Brilliant. No, fantastic to hear. Obviously, such great stories, and obviously really using the product fantastically well with the number of orders there, as we can see, and using that dual communication side of it, so email and text, like you said, you know, just the actual using that in conjunction with one another. With regards to hardware brands, is it quite similar to Tom? Have you got a good array of hardware brands?
Yeah, similar. So we're Titleist, TaylorMade, Callaway, and Ping. Almost, yeah, 4 of the big hitters that we deal with.
Great. And are you seeing kind of any trends at the moment? What's kind of in vogue and what people are kind of tending to go with?
Yeah, so the TaylorMade QI, I'm sure everyone's seen it across the board. That's been really good. Ping have held its own with it being a second year. So yeah, those have really performed for us this year. They've been great.
Fantastic. And I think we've probably covered that off, but just, you know, with regards to turning to Golf Shop, obviously you started looking at the back end of, or the middle of last summer. What was it that really kind of, you know, gave you the impotence to really look at it in detail?
Communication. Literally everything was around that communication. The fact that we get text that we couldn't do before, that was absolutely huge. When someone's at work, they've still got a text waiting for them on their phone. Everyone sees their phone when they're at work, so they can see that it's there, and kind of gets that excitement from that point of view.
Fantastic. I think it's good just to kind of, for the listeners really as well, just to give them an overview of Golf Genius Golf Shop. Obviously we're talking quite heavily on the custom fit aspect of it. But in essence, Golf Genius Golf Shop, you can pick it up and take it with you. It's cloud-based product designed for the golf professional to enhance the efficiency of the overall shop operation, from automated communications with your customers to manage your special orders, track demo clubs and rental items, really help with your repair jobs, and like we said, communicate with your customers, and many, many more. Like Rhys was just saying, with regards to the dashboard, as you can see on the slide in front of you, you get notifications as to anything that's outstanding. So kind of gone are the days of a spreadsheet or a whiteboard and relying on pen and paper and that communication within the actual internal team. It's great to provide that consistency throughout that operation. And obviously you can create tailored surveys to help with data-driven decisions to ensure that you're stocking products that your customers want to have. How does Golf Shop fit into your operation? So again, you know, I really think it's there to help save time, create greater efficiency, and command that uplift in revenue, and hopefully turn something that's reactive into a little bit more proactive. So what we're going to do now for kind of the latter part of the webinar is really take a bit of a deeper dive into actually processes past and present with both Tom and Rhys. So if I kind of open this up to both of you and ask them and ask questions, and it'd be really interesting to kind of to get your feedback on this. So you know, tell us a bit more, tell the listeners a bit more about the processes, what that looked like before you implemented Golf Shop at both the Belfry and TourFit Golf. Tom, if you want to start with that.
Sure. So we were actually using a cloud-based system called Notion. So if I didn't fit in or one of my assistants didn't fit in, we'd put the specs onto Notion and we'd update it. but it was just, you know, it was fine. We found it kind of like it was a little slow in terms of, you know, it might be a couple of days before we placed the order as an example. So if Matt done a fitting and I was off for a couple of days, there might be a bit of a delay there, you know, in terms of placing the order. There was obviously no communication between us and our customers as well. And now just being able to put an order into Golf Shop and literally send the quote to the customer has been a game changer as well, because, you know, everything is covered up front. They're agreeing the price, they're agreeing their specs as well. So there's never going to be a situation of, oh, I didn't order that shaft or I didn't order that grip. It's like you've agreed it because I've I've got the confirmation here.
Yeah,
And you know, like Rhys said earlier, is just being able to, you know, just press one button and that email goes directly to Titleist, whatever it is. You know, it just saves so much time, so much time.
fantastic. And Rhys, the same kind of question to yourself?
Yeah, almost echoing that kind of thing. So we actually use sort of spreadsheets for our orders. So there'd be a spreadsheet that the fitter would fill out. He'd then send it to our custom fit administrator, and then he'd do whatever he needed to do for the brand. So it's cut a lot of steps out, made it a lot quicker. Almost takes that room for error out as well, of the guy that looks after actually placing the order. He wasn't in the room when the fitting happened. So is there going to be a slight difference in the order? Whereas now the fitters literally put it straight onto Golf Genius. So that takes almost the room for error out there. Cuts the middleman straight out for that point of view. That's a real key thing that the fitter can do it himself.
Brilliant. And just looking at kind of feedback from both of you, what's that kind of experience been like from coming on board? Obviously, I think Rhys, you mentioned with regards to Jenny and that kind of training and onboarding process, but what's that kind of been experienced like, both from your customers but also from your other staff members as well?
Yeah, so I think when you first start a system like this, you're a little bit skeptical, like, especially with the amount of orders we got. We're like, this needs to work on day one. It needs to be perfect. And yeah, if there were 2 teething errors maybe that were sorted within a couple of days, that was pretty much it. But yeah, we just, like I say, we used Jenny to make sure we had everything set up how we wanted it. We had our messages how we wanted them, and there was very little issue at all. It's making, to be honest, the custom fit and the fitter and the custom fit administrator's job a lot easier and simpler. From a customer's point of view, they're like, we had to actively ask people for feedback, because I think, like we were alluding to earlier, this is what they're expecting when they buy something, and they're like, oh yeah, I got the text, it was really good, and that's kind of almost where you were. So yeah, from that point of view, it is what's expected, and it's almost where you need to be.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
I was actually really underwhelmed by my customers' feedback.
Yeah.
Because I was expecting them to come in and say, oh my God, this is amazing, because that's exactly what I was thinking. But it just goes to show that, you know, this kind of service is now expected by customers, and it's expected by clients, you know, and just being kept up to date by a text message, which from their side of things is probably quite simple, but the back end of it is obviously there's a lot more to it, you know. But my staff love it. My staff are they're into it, and you know they look at it, well, God knows how many times a day. But yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of stress, you know, the Golf Shop product isn't necessarily to replace, it's not an EPOS system, it's very much to work in parallel with that. But the fact that, like you said, you both almost led yourselves to kind of find that need in the product. I think it's a testament that obviously, yes, customers are obviously now expecting that level of service. And possibly it's a bigger win operationally. You know, it helps potentially streamline those efficiencies, so you can actually be a bit more useful with your time elsewhere in the businesses. No, really interesting. I'm absolutely loving kind of finding out from both perspectives. Just a couple of questions before we kind of go on to Q&A, as I realise we're getting, we've done the half an hour. I always like to ask the question, to both of you, if you could give one piece of advice to the listeners to help them on their journey, specifically with custom fitting, what would it be? Let's mix it up. Let's go Rhys first this time.
So from a golf genius point of view,
it doesn't have to be. I think, just what kind of you taken from your experiences, what would you give, ideally?
yeah, so if you were taking this system, so I'll stick to almost using this, the key work is utilising Jenny as much as you can, which is going to put a bit more on a plate, but yeah, get that set up right, and it's literally, as soon as the setup's right, touch wood, it's seamless. It's literally like type it in and you're good. Literally just get the messages set up and yeah, you're ready to go.
Tom, and yourself? Any nuggets for them out there?
I mean, not so much from a golf genius perspective, but I guess if I was to relate kind of things to like our growth this year, and the biggest reason why we've grown is we really sat down at the start of the year and really just thought about like what our target audience is and what does our ideal customer look like. So we thought like a lot about, when you look at custom fit is a very generic kind of thing, because you're talking about custom fitted putters, wedges, irons, fairway woods, hybrids, drivers. And we just sat down and we thought, right, in an ideal world, what do we want to do day in, day out? And for us and our business, it was drivers and irons. We didn't really want to focus heavily, even though we do a lot of wedges, putters and hybrids and everything. We didn't really want to focus on that too much. Then we thought a little bit about the customer themselves, like what type of customer do we want to aim for? And we kind of whittled it down to somebody who plays in competitions week in, week out, is typically over the age of 30. So they've got a bit of disposable expenditure. And we just marketed to those people, just trying to tell those people that this is the service that we provide. And it's been unbelievable, honestly. And just tagging on the golf shop and the golf genius experience then to the back end of that, those people are typically friends with those type of people as well. So yeah, it just, the word of mouth then just spreads and spreads and spreads, and it's been awesome. So we just wanted to do more business in the areas that we want to do it in, and with the people that we want to do it with, and less of the opposite, effectively. It's actually quite simple, but
there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that's really insightful into that plan, and certainly given everybody food for thought. Nick, I'd like to hand it back over to you. Have we gathered any kind of questions as we've been going through?
Yeah, we got a couple. Just before we jump into them, Tom, you made a really good point about internal communications and task management. We're very much as a business, not just in our shop products, but in all of our products, we lead through listening. We take customer feedback very seriously, and we do something about it. And we've made some good strides there. Jenny, I don't know if you want to provide just a very quick summary on the task management tool that is coming out soon.
Yeah, so we are launching a new feature in a couple of weeks' time, the first milestone for our task management. So you will see an additional feature on the Golf Shop platform, which will allow you to create tasks, assign tasks, and also communicate with your staff as well. So a pretty simple but effective design, I would say. Pretty clear and concise. And yeah, just you'll be able to see who's accepted, who's read the email, that type of thing as well. So yeah, looking forward to seeing that coming out in a couple of weeks' time. And looking forward to your feedback as well.
Great, thanks for that. Tom, you mentioned you've done a lot of work with tour players. Someone's asked, what's the biggest difference in the way you approach custom fitting on tour versus normal everyday golfers? I'm sure the swing probably has a big part to do with that.
Yeah, it does a little bit. But I guess there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of differences. So I mean, if I start with kind of like the similarities, you're effectively, you know, with any player, it doesn't matter what standard they are, you're looking at how they deliver the club, what the outcome is, and then how can we manipulate the bit in the middle, which essentially is the golf club, to give them a better outcome. And it doesn't matter whether, you know, it's a 28 handicapper or, you know, world #1 golfer, that process kind of remains the same. The biggest difference, well, there's a couple of differences actually. Number one, it's the amount of options that you've got on tour when you can walk into a tour track and you can grab 5 10.5 heads, which have got different face angles, and you can grab, you know, 5 Ventus Black 6X shafts with different tipping options on them. And you can build them very quickly and go out and test them within kind of 20 minutes. You know, that's obviously not an option which we've got now. And then I guess the biggest difference is like the environment more than anything. When somebody comes into our studio now, like they've booked the session, they want to be there, they're there to listen. You know, it's a passion and a hobby of theirs. Whereas, you know, if you're standing in the Open Championship on a Wednesday afternoon dealing with the world #1 player who's got, you know, an issue with the driver, and you've got the coach, the caddy, the manager, you've got everyone standing there looking over your shoulder, scrutinizing every single thing that you're saying and doing. You know, it's quite a high pressured situation, but it's just the environment and the personalities that you've got to manage then at tour level, which becomes very, very different to working with, you know, golfers in a studio. And I didn't find that too difficult to manage, but you have got to have quite a strong personality to be able to stand there and say, you know, to typically one of the world's best coaches, you know, I don't agree with you, or, you know, you don't agree with the player, or whatever it is, whatever the scenario is, you know. But like I said, there's a lot of similarities in the actual process of getting a result, you know.
Brilliant. Great insight. Thanks for that. And then we have one more question, which I'll share to both of you, if that's okay. I'll start off with you first, Rhys. And it says, how can professionals manage the demands of a growing custom fitting business whilst also trying to service golf members and coaching? What practical steps can they take to help balance the many demands of their job?
Okay, yeah, the key thing is organisation. You've got to be able to organise yourself. And like I said, I would put this software as a way of doing it, whether it's the way that works for you. But that would be a key for me. You've got to be able to, one, organise yourself, and luckily you've got access to this 24/7. So if you've gone home and you've got your mobile on you can still log in, and that almost takes care of this one element. From a custom fit point of view, like we've said all the way through, it's making the life easier and giving you your time back almost.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Tom, any insights from you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like utilizing technology. And yes, you know, Golf Shop is amazing, and it will help massively. But I relate this directly to my situation at the moment. So, you know, I get requests for lessons every single day. And the biggest problem is if I have a week or 2 weeks where I'm coaching a huge amount and my diary is full then and I can't do any custom fitting, I'm looking at my stock level and I'm thinking that is just staying there and it's not moving and I'm not generating any profit from that. So I guess what I've done to make sure that we can continue to turn things over, because you can almost fail by being too busy in different areas from a custom fit perspective, is I've made sure that when you go onto our coaching website, if you book a lesson with me, you're only allowed to book 1 per day. So once one lesson is booked per day, that day will be completely closed off. But then on the fit inside, then you're allowed to book 2 per day, as an example. So the ratio then of what I'm doing is controlled as well. And that has been absolutely vital for me, and combined with actually utilizing staff members to get them fit in and to almost like give up a little bit of control, you know, of the whole process and make sure your staff are educated really well. I would say that's probably the biggest thing that I would say.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for your time today. It's much appreciated. Thank you to everyone who has joined the webinar and listened today. We will be sending out a recording of this, so keep your eyes peeled for that. On the screen, you can see a list of our next webinars that are coming up over the coming weeks. Our next webinar will be focusing on using our tournament management product to help drive revenue for your club open golf tournament. So again, thank you very much to our panelists, James and Jenny, for joining us, and for all of you joining. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.